Imagine, the sound of the starting gun resonates throughout the old, potholed dirt track. The racers bolt from behind the starting gate, black, gray, and white bullets zipping across the dirt. These greyhounds are not racing for leisure or exercise. These dogs are racing for their right to live. 50,000. That is the number of greyhound puppies bred into the racing industry each year. 15,000. That is the number that actually touch the track dirt to race. 35,000. That is the number of dogs left over. That is the number of animals that no longer serve the purpose of those who bred them. The dogs that are used as breeding factories, shot and destroyed, or sold to experimental labs for profit. So the dogs with a propensity to speed are the lucky ones. They get the benefits of shelter, food, and glory. Well, at least this is what the Greyhound Racing-Association of America publicizes. The truth behind the sport of greyhound racing is an ugly one. The lucky dogs that race are subject to a life of cruelty and neglect, all too often resulting in the same fate as their rejected brothers and sisters. The hounds spend most of their lives in cages, only taken out to train or go to the bathroom, if that. These cages have no climate control, and for these dogs that have a light coat, the sweltering heat or bitter cold they are subjected to greatly jeopardizes their health. These cages can also be tightly packed with 2 or 3 dogs. In addition to hazardous climate conditions, that greyhounds spend virtually their entire lives muzzled, whether they are in their cage or they are racing. This makes them highly susceptible to parasites and muzzle sores that are painful and dangerous. A report from a representative of the Greyhound Network News, whose name has been withheld, states the observations that he made visiting a Florida kennel that housed greyhound racers. He noted, quote, "The stench was overpowering in the dark, airless building. The dogs peered at us through dilapidated wooden crates. The dogs were infested with fleas and ticks. One male went into convulsions en route. We almost lost him. We later learned that this dog had been beaten by his trainer for urinating in his crate." End quote. These living conditions make it almost impossible to survive. The living conditions of these exploited dogs are unfortunately the last thing that they have to be worrying about. The training methods of the racers are inhumane to say the least, and not just for the dogs. Chasing jackrabbits has been a method of motivational training for years. This may appear harmless. Why not appeal to the dog's natural instincts? But the future of the training rabbits is grim. Carriers that become slow and ineffective are literally thrown to the dogs to be killed. If the dog does not have the desire to kill the vermin, the 2 animals are locked in a cage together. The dog is deprived of food for days, and finally primal instincts emerge, leading the dog to resort to killing his or her cage companion. While this practice is now typically illegal in most racing states, dogs are often sent across state borders to where the practice is not illegal. One Massachusetts breeder admits that she sends her 1-year-old greyhounds to Oklahoma for 6 to 8 months to learn by chasing rabbits. Speaking of food deprivation, starving the athletes extends beyond this training exercise. According to veterinarian John Robb, who took care of 2 dogs who had recently raced, they were, quote, basically starving. Yet these intense struggles of racing dogs are not as horrifying as their ultimate fate. The untimely demise of the dogs that do not satisfy the needs of their owners is the true tragedy of the sport. The countless cases of dogs executed at the track after losing, dogs tortured after losing, and dogs brought to animal shelters for a euthanasia-induced retirement have plagued the industry for years. MSPCA shelter manager John Periol remembers.
Racers that were perfectly healthy with good flesh and temperament, only to die because they did not win at the tracks.
One of the most severe came from the New York Times. The publication told of a greyhound graveyard uncovered at the home of an Alabama track security guard. The remains of 3,000 dogs were found at his home, all killed by a bullet to the head from a .22 rifle. As the man's defense, his attorney claimed that his killing was actually an act of mercy, claiming, quote, "If there's anybody to be indicted here, it's the industry, because this is what they're doing to these animals. The misery begins the day they're born. The misery ends when my client gets a hold of them and puts a bullet in their head." The deaths of the dogs are brutal and heartbreaking, including electrocution and drowning. These horrible truths are the crowning reason why greyhound racing should be made illegal. While some fortunate animals do get placed into loving homes through the efforts of anti-racing organizations, most are not so lucky. Many are disposed of at animal shelters to be put to sleep when they are no longer needed. The solution to this problem is somewhat simple. According to the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, or PETA, greyhound racing is illegal in 34 states, but it needs to be illegal everywhere. The industry brings in less than 1% of the annual revenue, so the states that are keeping it legal aren't benefiting enough financially to make a very big difference. States that already have the activity illegal may still be providing dogs from kennels, so the only way to truly eliminate the problem will be to make it completely illegal. 50,000. That is the number of dogs each year that enter an industry that thrives on beating them down, killing them, and destroying them. If animal cruelty is a written illegal act, why is it that there are organizations that publicly live off this abuse with no consequence? We can take a lesson from the point brought up in Virginia's bill to ban dog racing, which states,
"We can find a million things to bet on. We don't need tens of thousands of these magnificent creatures to die each year for our amusement.